She has brought the remaining elves who were wandering the forest. The cook asks where the men are, to which she replies that it's okay because they can now start producing more men.
Yeah, boy.
After seeing how she skillfully extracted information out of that man, Haraku wanted to extract milk out of her plot.
What did he say?
現実は苦しみと痛みと虚しさだけが漂っている。
Snow began to accumulate when the first frost of the winter arrived. Lu worried that Haraku's creation of a couple traditional games, reversi and chess, was too basic to appreciate, but Tia assured her that the game's basic rules will enable more difficult challenges. He told Tia that she was right, so Lu grew angry and tried challenging Tia for a game. After 2 hours, Tia was about to be absolutely destroyed, and Haraku noticed her hands shivering, but she pretended to have her hands slip. She apologized because they were going to have to start all over. But Tia uses her magic to make all of the pieces fall exactly to where they were. She tells her it's embarrassing that she's playing like a child, and Haraku tries to see how the others are doing. He sees the 2 other girls playing reversi peacefully, and Cairo points out where the best position possible. Would be it shocks him how Cairo can understand the rules, but sees the other wolves playing chess correctly. And even though it may look cute at first glance, he feels an intense aura coming from them. Lu decides to play a game against them because she definitely won't lose, but the game doesn't end. Well, all 4 of them play mahjong, and Haraku thinks he has the upper hand because of how complicated the rules were, so he tried to get revenge for Lu, but all of the girls completely destroyed him. Poor Haraku and Lu have both been clapped after a few weeks. They were bored of board games, so Haraku designed bowling equipment from it, even though it was just a simple game. All of the girls enjoyed it, and so the winter days began slowly going. By the creative refrigerator he created was working, and they were able to enjoy their delicious food until snow finally melted and spring came. But while he tried enjoying the nice warm temperature, Zabutin sounded the alarm to alert them of a giant monster approaching. Haraku looked at the sky and noticed a giant dragon flying towards them, but Tia told him that this wasn't a dragon, it's a wyvern. The wyvern roared in the sky and began preparing a fire blow to destroy the tree, but Tia barely managed to fend it off. Some of the fire still landed, and Leah rushed with the others to put it out. Haraku wondered what he could do in this situation and wanted to do anything possible to protect everyone. As he clenched his fist, a spear appeared, and he pointed it towards the sky, throwing it with all of his power. The spear clashed against the wyvern's defenses and pierced through them, ripping the wyvern's wings apart. It flew back for Haraku to send another strike. Haraku struck the Y group square in the chest, sending it hurtling to the floor of the forest. Upon discovering the dragon's death, he pondered whether someone had brought it there on purpose, given how uncommon and precious wyverns are. After Haraku finished cooking the wyvern steak and made a stew out of the tail meat, all of the girls thought it was the first time Harakus cooked something good. He's glad they're finally impressed. Tia believes it was just a wild monster acting alone. He thinks it was an unfortunate incident, but wonders if they could eat its meat at home. Haraku asks them what they're talking about, wondering if it's because he didn't take out all the bones. Tia responds that it's nothing, and they weren't talking about eating his bone or anything. Lu still feels strange. She wonders if Tia could have defended herself against an attack from Haraku's spear. Tia tells Lu that it would be impossible. As for the higher-ups inside the demonic kingdom, they have learned that the wyvern has been defeated, and that it will take a full organized force to take one of them down. However, the count shows that this is not the case, and the generals are terrified of what happened, to the point where one of them even wants to resign inside Dream's lair to the south. After witnessing the attack firsthand, Gucci believes that Hiraku's spear might pierce even the king of dragons. However, Hiraku believes that something is still missing from their meals, specifically the PG grape juice. To extract the juices from the grapes, he assembled all the elf girls and constructed a device where they would tread on the grapes. Tia and Leah begin sinking their feet deep into the balls and crush them until the sticky liquid comes out. They manage to fall on top of each other and see that they've been covered with the creamy, sticky liquid, wondering how they could manage to keep their rhythm while they do this one of all. The elves suggested singing a song like they used to Ugly Bear. Thank you, the juices begin coming out, and Tia tells Lu to join in with them along. With Haraku, they spend the entire day juicing out the grapes, and they've left yeast on top of the barrels so that it could begin fermenting. He wonders if they've made enough. and the god of the world shows the other god how much fun Hiraku's having, and begs for forgiveness. However, the god of agriculture tells him that he managed to end an innocent human's life and send him into the deepest parts of the forest of death. Not only that, but he also gave him the holy lance grime and tried disguising it as a farming tool. It would normally suck all of a person's life force out and kill them instantly, but the god thinks that he's given him such a healthy body that he'll be able to regenerate his life energy right away. But even more than that, she wonders why the statue of her is an old man. So is punishment. She will force her dad to sit like this for 300 years. Random day, Sabuton sounded the alarms and Hiraku felt like he was getting deja vu. Yet again, Lu identified the girl as her sibling. Flora followed her sister all the way after learning that the black-hearted, ugly, repulsive angel was pursuing her. She is told to say it again by Tia, but she finds it difficult to accept that this ugly monster is her sister's husband. Hiraku has invited her to stay here, as she tells her that he's the master of all these infernal wolves and has even defeated a wyvern. Hiro advises her to show respect. Now, this is the first time Hiraku has heard that they are infernal wolves, and she wonders what as an atonement for having the wolves devour her like the other girls. Firo proceeds to demonstrate his talents and tells him he's the greatest pet in the Inferno section. Her favorite dish is the soft white liquidy stuff that Hiraku's made for her. He explains that it's just tofu made with soy sauce that was made through fermentation, but she doesn't know what any of those words mean. It's become obvious to Hiraku that they are unaware that there are microorganisms in the world that cause fermentation. So Flora tries to learn more about it because she believes it would help with a lot of issues. Flora decided to leave after only a few days, and when she returned a month later, she took an army of maids with her, and they told Hiraku to use them whatever they choose. The maids are a race of ogres who help with chores, but Hiraku noticed that none of them can cook. So he started teaching them how to make a variety of meals. Tia notices that she's the only one who hasn't brought a lot of her own kind in order to stay competitive. She flew off and returned that night with 3 other angels and an entire fleet of lizardmen along with all of the new citizens. She's brought chickens. When the maids saw the delicious food, they started experimenting with the meat to make the best meals possible. Meanwhile, Tia's 3 angels started keeping an eye on the group, and the lizardmen took up the hard labor to expedite construction. Speaking of the devil, Hiraku noticed that the place was growing exponentially. Ria enters and tells him that she has brought the remaining elves who were wandering the forest. The cook asks where the men are, to which she replies that it's okay because they can now start producing more men.
Yeah, boy.
After a few days, Hiraku asked all of the representatives to gather and apologized for calling them at such an unexpected time. Since the place has been expanding and more people are moving in, it is beginning to resemble a village, so he needed assistance coming up with a name. One of the maids suggested naming it after the forest, but Hiraku feels that the name Forest of Death would make it sound like a ghost town. When Zabuton gestured to the door, Hiraku opened it and saw the enormous tree in the middle. He named the village the Great Tree Village. That evening, all of the residents celebrated the naming of their village, threw a party, and uncorked the first barrel, at which point all of the girls chanted the word mayor. Lu informed him that he was the only candidate for the position. This night marked the start of their new life as citizens of the Great Tree Village, and they all celebrated by sipping PG grape juice. He informed her that he was so thrilled that it felt like a dream, but it's not a dream when Tia, who was inebriated, requested him to sit next to her. Haku wondered how long it had been since he had found happiness, and decided to give it a shot as mayor. Tia told him they would live together like this for the rest of their lives, and Lu encouraged him to raise a toast to their new village. When summer arrived, the number of residents had increased once more, but Hazel offered him a bottle and a message from the Demon Lord. Hataku wondered if he should ask Lu or Tia for advice, but Lu winked at him to handle it himself. Haku wondered if they were trying to get him to pay taxes or kick him out. Hiraku mustered the courage to tell the messenger that he would gladly pay taxes, saying that he will be paying only 10%. Hearing those words surprises Bezel, and Hiraku questions whether he made a mistake. However, Bezel agrees to his terms, having written down their agreement on paper. The business magnate worried that he was being overly forceful in the negotiations, so he sent Bezel home with a gift. Lu believes he did a fantastic job, handled everything well because they will now be protected by the Demon Lord's army. The generals are shocked that the Great Tree Village submitted so easily, but they are suspicious that they might be working for something else. Tio agrees, but believes that 10% is too low because settlements typically pay 50 to 60% in taxes, and since they only come once a year to collect taxes, they can lie about how much they produce. Thus, Haraku has created a miracle of a deal inside the Demon Lord's castle. Diesel accepts that possibility, but he was forced to act because the mayor was directly in the path of the Angel of Destruction and the Princess Vampire. In addition, there was a patrolling army of high elves, a pack of inferno wolves, and even the trio of killer angels. Diesel trembles with fear, realizing that he would be powerless to refuse their difficult negotiations. He examines their gift and discovers apples within, prompting one of them to investigate if they are poisoned. However, Bezel discovers another strange aspect of their gift. The cloth is made from a large demon spider, a monster so strong that it brought the previous demon lords to a complete stop. Brandon decides he's had enough and quits the next morning. The ruler of all dragons, Dry, introduces himself to Haraku and has come with his count to present them with a gift. Haraku sees the expensive sword inside, but thinks that it looks kind of violent. Regardless, he thanks the man and asks him what brought them here. Today, the man explains that Drame's lair is directly south of their village, so they consider them to be neighbors and have come here to offer a formal greeting. Haraku wishes to invite them for dinner, so Drive changes into his human form and introduces himself once more at night. He enjoys the PG grape juice they've created and begs for more of it. What his assistant tells him to leave before they become a nuisance for Haraku's village. After they left with the gifts Haraku prepared for them, he realized that they were going to have a lot of visitors coming through. So the following day, Haraku began building a guest house for potential visitors. Additionally, he didn't want the angels scaring off any visitors. And whenever Sabutin alerted them of a visitor, all of the lizard men were ready to head off into battle. It was a long way off from a proper welcome, so he came up with a new signal for visitors using a bell and created a welcoming party consisting of Tia and Lou. But the head maid wouldn't accept this. His life could be in danger if the visitors were malicious, so they added a bunch of high elves and lizard men to protect him. And for the visitors that stayed overnight, Haraku asked Flora to watch over them since she could go for several nights without sleep. As soon as all the preparations were ready, a new group of visitors had arrived. From the Howling Village, they wanted to establish trade relations, so Lou decided to take care of this and welcome them to their village. She asked them if this was their entire group, and their leader claimed that it was all of them. After hearing that, Lou told him that she will be treating the others as enemies, and the men straggling in the forest began screaming. Their leader apologized that some of them were straggling, and Lou told him that it's dangerous having people separated, so they should behave themselves while staying here after the guests spent the day inside the guest house. Blue locked their door for the night, and Haraku wondered why they're treating them like prisoners. Tia asks him if he hasn't noticed it yet. Every visitor has always brought a form of gift when coming, except for them, so that along with their troops lurking in the forest is the reason for lowering their hospitality. The next morning, Haraku asks why they aren't given PG grape juice, and the head maid responds that it's because some guests brought swords and others didn't. Haraku wishes they could at least have more food, but the maid gives him a chilly look as they eat. He is told to set aside his sympathy by Tia and Lou because, despite everyone's objections, Haraku forced them to put wine on the table in an attempt to strike up a conversation with these people, who claimed to have come for important negotiations but had not yet discussed anything. One of them says that they are glad they stopped hiding because they wouldn't have been able to enjoy this meal, and Tia slyly asks him why they were hiding. Haraku discovers that they are from a village that makes its living from hunting or mining, so naturally they needed to trade with their neighbors. However, due to a recent conflict that has prevented them from trading, they have come to the Great Tree Village to open trade negotiations. The man tells her that if anything bad were to happen, someone needed to run back and tell the rest of their village. After seeing how she skillfully extracted information out of that man, Haraku wanted to extract milk out of her plot.
What did he say?
Eventually, the leader began negotiating their trade agreement, with neither of them having any currency. They want to be able to trade physical goods. However, since their village is quite a distance away, and the Great Tree Village happens to be in one of the most dangerous places, they ask Haraku if they would be the ones to come to the village with such a vast distance to cover. Haraku considers having Kiro and the other wolves bring the goods on a carriage, so he agrees and asks them what they've brought to trade for. Today the man shows him the silverware and glasswork they produce from the ores, and Haraku thinks that their goods would greatly increase their quality of life. In exchange, they want to trade for food, so Haraku gladly agrees. This was the beginning of their trade relationship, and before they were about to leave, the leader apologized for not bringing a gift when visiting their village. Never had a custom like that, so he promises that he'll bring something next time, but it may not be luxurious since their village is poor. However, Haraku tells him that size doesn't matter. It's the heart that does.
Really?
Before long, their first day of trade with the Howling Village came, and the girls told Haraku to stay back since Tia will be acting as their representative. Dream agreed to take everyone there in exchange for a barrel of grape juice. Over time, it started coming to hang out regularly for the grape juice, and always brought treasures with him, so Haraku was glad to always see him. He thanked him for the grape juice and took off. A few days later, Tia returned and told Haraku that they managed to trade everything. At first, the citizens were hesitant because they'd never seen that food before, so she decided to offer them some free samples, and before long, everyone loved it. They even sold the wine that was supposed to be for dry, so Haraku promised he would give him even more grape juice tonight. According to Tia, the mayor inquired about the possibility of bringing some villagers to settle in Great Tree Community. Currently, the community has 20 residents. All of them are young ladies. Handy that when Haraku sees that Dr. Riz is genuinely in himself and won't develop a scheme with any of them, the village would never have a future. He reluctantly agrees, but only if they obtain at least 2 young guys. The beast females present themselves the next week and state that they are psychologically ready to be used way Haraku thinks fit, provided that he doesn't desert them. Haraku tells her that he's from Alabama, so she has nothing to worry about since they're not related, and tells her that he'll take care of them. He asks her if they've brought the young men, and he sees the 3 young men. This wasn't what he was hoping for, but prays that they will save this village in the future after a while of living with all the new residents. Haraku notices how everyone can use magic. Even the little slimes. He tries not to worry about the impossible and focuses on farming, but an earthquake shakes the ground and one of the angels comes to inform him that a bloody viper and a grappler bear are fighting. She warns him that it might start affecting the village, but as she flew him to the site of the battle, he wondered how they would taste. He sees their giant size and asks her to fly him towards them as fast as possible. She rushes him forward, and with a single slash, he eliminates both of them. All the killer angels are surprised he managed to eliminate these legendary beasts with a single strike. At home, he begins cooking the meat using the PG grape juice, and the girls are crushed that their grape juice was wasted. As for the viper, he fried it and thought it tasted just like fried chicken. He notices that he's missing something and went that night to ask Flora about her fermentation studies. She told him that she hasn't made any progress and has had to rebuild the hut 3 times. Haraku has no idea how that's even possible, but she promises that she'll keep the explosives to a minimum. The chicken have finally laid eggs, so he begins beating the eggs, adds salt and vinegar, and with some oil he creates mayonnaise. Just then, a group of dwarves led by a man named Donovan appeared. They claimed to have heard of the PG grape juice and apologized for not having the money, but they did have the technology to use distillation to make the best-tasting Russian drinks. Donovan gives Hiraku a new smoothie, and Hiraku believes this task is more powerful than the force with which his father used to beat him. Donovan's group ultimately decided to stay in the village in order to produce more PG smoothies, so Hiraku threw a party to welcome the beast women and the dwarves who had joined their community. Grime is back at it again, drinking, and Lou is happy that he is responsible for making their village prosperous. His assistant ties him up and drags him away, and the dwarf thanks him for taking them in. As Hiraku drank, he noticed that there was finally an old man next to him, so he tried asking him if any of those girls had caught his eye. The tiny man felt they were all attractive, but he was more attracted to bearded ladies. This makes Hiraku understand that these women could have to see his little persuasion. After all, the next morning a dragon flies straight for the settlement, and Hiraku tries to take it down before it causes any issues. But Drime arrives to knock it down. The dragon appears a 3rd time with a menacing aura, and Hiraku launches his spear to save Drive. Just in time, the dragon barely dodges, but Dream's assistant reassures him that they are not enemies, shocking Haku. He then introduces the two new women, Mama Milker's Graphaloon and Lastus Moon, Dream's daughter. When Haraku questions him about the presence of his wife and daughter, Grime tries to explain that he has been secretly leaving his house at night, raising suspicions that he was seeing a mistress. Dram responds that it's all high politics, which allays Mommy Milker's fears. Ryan urges them not to draw hasty judgments, pointing out that he too has a slight predisposition and would never have the guts to have an affair of such nature. After he leaves, Drame asks his wife if she understands what he's been doing the entire time. Despite their lack of numbers, Haruku's spear alone has the power to overthrow their entire kingdom. Mommy Milkers wouldn't have been able to dodge the spear if it weren't for Zabuton, an old friend of hers. Finally, she tells her that she will be giving her a very important job. They will be living in this village for a while, so she hopes that she will at least ensure that his power won't be used against them. Dry masks her if she's sure about this, but Mommy Milkers thinks this is the best outcome for Lasty. Haraku gladly welcomes her to the village, but quickly realizes that she's too powerful, and even her sneezes blow away all her progress. He wonders what dragons can be useful for, and Tia reminds him that dragons like Drim tend to be really wise and knowledgeable, so Haraku thinks she would be good for diplomatic relationships.